This is John Cola with GrowingYourGreens.com. I have another exciting episode for you, and this is one I've been looking forward to for a long time. So I'm here at the very site where about a year ago I filmed a video entitled Amazing Permaculture Garden. And for those of you guys that haven't seen it, be sure to check my past videos, or actually I'll put a link right below this video so you can check out this amazing place. I'm here a year later, and now I'm really interested in learning, about some of the secrets and specifics on how they're growing the food here. And one of the main reasons is right here I'm sitting on top of the wood chips. And actually these are some cedar wood chips because it smells pretty nice. Kind of like that rabbit cage that I used to have when I was a kid. But in any case, we're here today to look specifically at the garden bed right behind me. They've been growing literally in wood chips for about 5 years now. And in this area, there's some amazing growage going on. So what we're going to do next is we're going to head down to that garden bed. And I'm going to show you guys how well the plants are growing in the wood chips, some rock dust, and also some mycelium spores that they inoculated it with. So let's head down there and check it out. Now we're looking at part of their garden where they got wood chips down below, and they're growing some nice rich dinosaur kale. And let's check this out. Check out how nice and large these dinosaur kale leaves are for just growing in wood chips. Psych! So for the non-Americans that don't know what psych means, that means like, hey, I'm just joking you. This is actually their area of their yard where they're growing a conventional garden, grown in compost and rock dust, and not necessarily the wood chips, although they are using the wood chips on top for mulch to conserve water. So while these look, fairly healthy and fairly good, and I've definitely grown larger ones than this, what I want to show you guys next is actually the garden where they are growing in 100% wood chips and the rock dust. So let's over to that garden next. All right, so now I'm sitting in the bed that I wanted to show you guys that they've been growing in wood chips here. So this has been totally 5 years. Basically after about 3 years, the wood chips that they put down had broken down into nice, rich, black growing medium humus to feed the plants, and here are the results. This is a standard dinosaur kale plant. No special strains, no special varieties. It actually grew the same one you just saw down there. These were planted at the same time, but with proper soil nutrition, like the wood chips and the rock dust provides, you're gonna get amazing growth. And what does amazing growth mean to you? It means more food for you in a smaller amount of space. So I always encourage you guys to build your soil, but let's check out this dinosaur kale leaf. I mean, normally you go to the store to buy dinosaur kale, or maybe even harvest dinosaur kale out of your yard. It looks like the one I showed you, but check that out. This is ginormous. I mean, this is probably getting near the genetic potential of dinosaur kale. These are nice and large and rich. And the gardeners attribute this to specifically the wood chips because this was basically unimproved clay soil when they moved in. But with massive wood chips, this is what you get. Totally amazing. So I know you guys are probably super impressed with how large those dino kale leaves actually were. I know I am, and I tasted them, and let me tell you, they tasted as good as they look. So large, so amazing, and they taste excellent. Some of the best dino kale that I've actually ever tasted, including maybe even possibly better than my garden. So how do they get these amazing results? Well, the answer is very simple, and it's a free resource that may also be available to you as well. And that's behind me. You can see that huge pile of wood chips. Over the past 5 years, they've got a total of 214 dump truck loads full of wood chips. And this equates to about 530 tons of wood chips that got dumped in that very spot and wheelbarrowed all over this land. About 1 acre is under cultivation to basically build the soil and raise it up, because this is all on the slope of a canyon, and actually many of the other houses and whatnot in the area have erosion, because when you're not building retaining walls or anything, the earth will slide. But when they've added all these wood chips to raise up the level and also build their soil, it also acts like a sponge to hold a lot of the water so that they don't get the runoff and they don't get the erosion problems. So imagine if wood chips were simply used for erosion control, but also to grow in. They're an amazing resource, and many tree companies or arborists that have chippers literally have to pay to dump their wood chips off at the dumps. when you may be even able to get them for free and start building your soil. So, what are the secrets to building your soil with wood chips? Well, let's go over and take a look at some of the soil that they have built using the wood chips, and I'll explain more about how they have done that. Now you guys are looking at the wood chips, and here they are right in this area. So they've been wood chipping this area right here I'm standing on, and that you guys are looking at for the past 5 years. And definitely on the top layer, you can basically see wood chips. But if we dig this down just a little bit, we're gonna get down here lower and check this soil out they've been creating. I mean, this is basically the product of the wood chips. This is a nice, dark, rich soil, much like a compost you would buy. But man, this stuff is super rich. Totally amazing. Now, have they been able to get their wood chips to break down within 3 years to make it look like this soil here? It's very simple. They added things like rock dust, which feeds the bacteria, but they also added a pound of mushroom spores and some white cap mushrooms. So what that stuff does is actually helps to bring and hold the wood chips together like a sponge, and the mushrooms work on breaking down the wood chips so that they could get this amazing growing medium. You guys just saw how they're turning the wood chips into a fertile soil by adding the mushroom inoculate and also some other mushrooms and the rock dust to create nice, rich, fertile soil. But there's some other ways that they are using the wood chips, and the wood chips are a very valuable resource to have, and in many cases they're just getting dumped away in the landfill. So the two other ways they're using the wood chips here are, number one, they're using it for their pathways. So all their pathways are mulched with wood chips, and they're doing the sheet mulching, so they put down some cardboard and the wood chips on top, so that prevents things growing up in their nice walkways. Also, the wood chips are also breaking down, so it's building the soil below the pathways as well. And also, besides using it as pathways, they're also using it as a standard mulch. So this helps to retain the water in the soil so that their water bill isn't as high. Now I'm going to explain to you guys how you can start using wood chips to increase your soil fertility. Number one is source your wood chips. Start getting wood chips dumped on your property. Now, many residential areas, you may not be able to get wood chips dumped in your property, and they may not even be able to be stored or seen from your front yard, depending on your locale, because it can look kind of, I don't know, funky for most people. But you can definitely do it in your backyard. I definitely recommend this style technique if you have half acre, 1 acre or more. If you're on a small residential lot, you might want to work with some wood chips in the back and build a pile of wood chips and help it break down, and then take that and distribute it to where you're going to be using it to grow in. What's the easiest way you can start using wood chips today to start building your soil? Well, there's a few ways. Number one, if you just want to build your soil like they did here, they literally just started dumping wood chips on the top of their standard soil and adding some of the mushroom spores and the rock dust to it. So they literally just, covered up their dirt, like this little dirt patch here, with the wood chips. And as they got more, they kept piling it up. And over about 3 years, yes, it takes that long, 3 years, finally the wood chips that they added 3 years ago started breaking down and turned into that nice, rich soil you saw. Now, if you do want to start planting before the 3 years is up, what you want to do is actually you want to take the wood chips that you've now piled up on top of the soil here, and you're going to dig a little hole down to the soil that you had existing. It's very important not to mix the wood chips in with your soil. If you start tilling this in, the wood chips will basically start sucking the nitrogen from the soil to balance them. But if you're piling them on top, you're not going to have that problem. So if you do want to plant, you're going to basically make a little mound here, and you're going to dig out the dirt from down below. Once again, you're not mixing the wood chips in with the soil. You're going to take your start, and we have a magenta spring lamb's quarter start here, and we're just going to go ahead and plant that in that little hole there, and then pile some of the soil on top. And then basically what we're going to do now is we're going to add the wood chips as a mulch around the plant. But once again, don't mix the wood chips in with the soil. So this is an easy way you can plant. If you don't want to plant, it'd be easier just to pile on the wood chips for about 3 years, and if done properly, you'll have some black soil like they did there. The last thing we're going to get to do today is talk to Gabrielle, one of the stewards of the property here that has basically made this all happen with her husband Thomas and the community. So let's go head up to the wood chip pile where it all started and talk with Gabrielle. And now we're here with Gabrielle, one of the stewards of this permaculture Grace garden, and we're just going to ask her a few questions about how she made this amazing garden. I mean, you guys just saw how big her kale was. Even I'm not growing kale that big yet, but I will one day. I have to catch up here. But nonetheless, it's amazing just what she's done with literally that free resource of wood chips, which you could see this huge pile behind us. Also some rock dust, which I'm a big advocate of, and also the mycelium or some of the mushrooms. So Gabrielle, why don't you tell us, why you decided to use the wood chips and do this to make this happen instead of going the standard compost route that many gardeners out there do?
Well, Oregon, where we live, has 3 months of drought every summer. And if we're going to have a crop, we have to water. Wood chips, initially I saw them simply as a mulch to keep the soil covered so we would retain the water. Then I started to notice that the plants with the wood chips were happier and began to research and learn some things that when the wood chips rot, they actually create a fine soil. And you can increase the rate of decomposition by inoculating the wood chips with mushroom mycelium, or just take some mushrooms that you find and throw them around your garden. They'll do the rest. We bought a pound of spores because we had so much land to improve. This was all clay subsoil 5 years ago. We bought it. It's a very steep pitch, and we knew we had to do something and we could never grow anything. We did bring in a lot of compost, but you can only buy so much compost. Our neighbor 2 blocks away has a minor business as an arborist, and he has to pay the dump 10 to 25 to 50 bucks every time he dumps his tons of wood chips. And we said, look, if we create a place where you can dump these, will you dump them here? We'll take anything you have, whether it's got firewood in it or sticks or leaves. And so for 5 years we've been getting this pile and we've been putting it around. My husband wanted to change the grade of the land, so he actually created what he calls a patio 4 feet high, and that is where that kale is. And it's had enough time to rot, so that kale is growing in about 2 feet of rotten, beautiful forest loam created from wood chips. And I'm amazed how big it is. And then the Back to Eden information really recommends this, as we're not buying any more compost. We're just waiting for our wood chips to rot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the rock dust, because that's one of the ingredients to what you use to adding to your wood chips. And also, you were telling me about the apple tree that we're sitting actually right almost under, and how this is doing so much better and yielding so much more crop once you started putting the rock dust and working with the wood chips.
Yes. The only fruit-bearing thing on this whole 3 acres is this 100-year-old apple tree in terrible condition, and wormy, maggoty apples every year, and some years no apples at all because it's not been well cared for. We didn't really focus on it, but I believe that I should get my minerals from plants and not from a pill. So I've always put rock dust or a product called azomite, which is a volcanic form of trace minerals, every time I garden. Just a little sprinkle every year. And the apple trees benefited from that. We cleared the tangle away. It's got a nice little bed of wood chips on it. And I've noticed every year, particularly this year, that the apples are better. Almost no worms or maggots at all. We never spray it. We can't. It's too big. And beautiful, tasty. So I think the tree is thanking us, and it's performing even in its old age in a much better way. Minerals are important. I couldn't believe you could grow a plant in rotten chips, so I felt like I had to add something. So what I added was the minerals, and to me that's the perfect soil.
Wow. So I just have one last question for Gabrielle. Gabrielle, do you have any last departing tips for my viewers out there and how they could have a nice luscious garden like this? And
Well, ask your garden to help you and learn to listen to what it's showing you. The world of nature is a lot smarter than us gardeners and what it needs, and they will help. They will help.
I absolutely agree. I mean, so many times we want to love our plants by giving it too much water, not enough water, and many people basically on purposely kill their plants by trying to overlove it. But if we listen to their needs and respect that and give them what they need, then they're going to grow healthy and yield lots of food for you guys to eat. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode, learning more about the power of wood chips and how they can increase your fertility, your tillage, and how you could have amazing dinosaur kale like you saw here. Once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, keep on growing.